Hey Wargamers, today Games Workshop released a new preview of our rule set for 9th edition 40k, today focusing on how they have made the battle round a more streamlined and intuitive process. There are a couple real juicy morsels in this otherwise vague overview that I want to dive into today. The first is that they've done something really nice and put reinforcements as their own subphase of the movement phase. You no longer have to rely on the wording of any particular reinforcement, saying, at the end of the movement phase or something like that. This is now a very explicit part of the movement phase. The second and much more important part is that they've added a whole new phase before the movement phase called the command phase. And the command phase has two components to it. One is that it allows you to acquire command points, and then it also allows you to spend those command points on certain stratagems. And both of those statements, I think, are really tantalizing. From the command point perspective, it means, well, at least suggests to me that you accrue command points over the course of the game. Now, this could be that, instead of doing things like Pure Tide Engram Neurochip, where you roll it on every stratagem expenditure, you roll it once at the beginning of the phase. That simplifies it, and let's say on a 4-up you get a command point. It could be something as simple as that, but it also could be something much more impactful, like adopting a kill team style system of command point gainage, meaning that instead of having all your command points at the beginning of the game, you get them gradually over the course of the game. This is really cool and means a couple different things. One is that you probably will have more command points to spend later on the game than you would otherwise. It also means that you don't necessarily have to bank command points for very long if you want to do something cool at the beginning of the game. Really, you don't have to hold on to command points and say what if, because you know that there are more command points coming later on that you can rely on in those later turns. So it helps streamline that economy a little bit. It also makes things a little less alpha strikey, right? You don't have these armies that would necessarily spend, all their command points on turn 1 and have this really hard-hitting alpha strike because they're constrained by the number of command points they get on that first turn. So having some combination of existing and kill team style command point acquisition, or purely having a kill team style acquisition strategy would be really interesting and really change the dynamic of the game. I think I could see things like Blood Angels suffering fairly significantly under this new paradigm if they were to constrain the number of command points you could spend up front. But other armies like Tau, for example, could do fairly well because we have a tendency to generally spread our command point expenditure out throughout the game, matching this new system fairly well. So that's pretty interesting and has some pretty impactful consequences for how different armies function. The second part is that you can spend them on certain stratagems in the command phase. Now, again, this could be pretty simple, like just, generalist stratagems, or it could be, more specific. It could be most stratagems are spent in the command phase, removing a big part of confusion in the rule set. There's many instances where people have gotten arguments or, tournaments have been stymied by instances where people used a stratagem when they really shouldn't have, or didn't use it when they were supposed to, that type of thing. And if you just have all the stratagems be used in the command phase, it means that you avoid all that confusion. It makes things a lot more intuitive, much more simple. You know that you have to spend it at this time, and it just makes things a lot easier. It also means that you lack a little bit of that tactical nuance. If I know that I have to spend my my stratagem at the beginning of the turn before I know what is going to happen later on in the turn, that means that there's more of a risk, right? I could spend that command point, my opponent can respond to that in a way that they wouldn't otherwise be able to if I was able to, have basically an instance or an instant spell, like in Magic, right? Stratagems right now are basically instants as opposed to things that you have to plan ahead. So changing the arrangement from being an instant to being a planned out component of the game really does change that dynamic as well. So I think that'll be a lot easier, a lot more intuitive, but it will have consequences for how the game is played, of course, and potentially in a way that some people won't like. I think it'll be fun. I think it will make things a lot easier for me. So this is something that I'm looking forward to. But more importantly, I want to know what you guys think. Do you like the idea of having to spend all your command points, spend all your stratagems at the beginning of the turn, or would you prefer to be able to do it almost exclusively throughout the battle round? Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Put them in the comments below, and as always, happy wargaming. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. This channel is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our community over there as well. Special thanks to Shifty, Dallas Ellis, Jim Bob, Nick Steele, Tal Oswell, Stephen Cohen, Jake Johnson, Jeff Godwin, Jacob Harkrider, Michael Byrne, Zallis Brimstone, Jared Egler, and Chris Kessler.